This is a slightly longer piece called, But Who Are You? I was never an outstanding student at Wellesley College, but by the last semester of my senior year, my mediocre grades had improved. After 3 years of feeling outclassed by all the sophisticated, brilliant young women surrounding me, I had finally begun to feel a certain self-confidence in my academic abilities. I had become an art history major. There you could look at actual objects that real people had created and others had used. In the 1960s, all the emphasis was placed on the canonical masterpieces of European art. A premium was given for the refined skills of connoisseurship and visual identification of the individual styles of the great male artists. I found I could easily distinguish paintings from Uccello from those of Piero da Francesca or Picasso from Braque. A helpful knack. I was taking a senior seminar in medieval sculpture. This was taught by Professor Teresa Frisch, a formidable older woman who had never modified her Viennese accent. She had a Harvard PhD and was the author of a scholarly book of source materials on medieval art. Ms. Frisch had pale blue eyes, coiffed short iron gray hair, and wore severe, well-made tweed suits and good-looking, sensible shoes. She was also dean of the college and was not an administrator to be taken lightly. As such, she had led a purge of lesbian students from the theater department the previous year. A nosy junior had found 2 popular seniors making out one night in the secluded sitting room of the Shakespeare Society and reported them. Miss Frisch interrogated the 2 about the nature of their friendship, and they were expelled just weeks before they would graduate. This seemed very unfair to most of us, and it seriously upset the plans for the Shakespeare Society's spring production of The Tempest, as one was the director and the other, such a pretty girl with long straight hair, had the starring role of Miranda. As usual, throughout the semester, I had sat quietly in the back of the dark seminar room and just enjoyed looking at the slides. I asked no questions and answered none. For the final assignment, we were to write a research paper on one of several subjects that Miss Frisch had approved. The art history department required that students study works of art firsthand, not from pictures in books, nor from the memory of a trip to Italy the previous summer. In addition to writing the paper, we were to discuss our findings in person with Miss Frisch. I decided to study a French Virgin and Child in the collection of the small college museum. I had no special feeling for mothers and babies, nor for this often too sweet, puzzlingly contradictory staple of Catholic imagery. How could a mother also be a virgin? My choice may well have been made for convenience, as the museum was a few steps from my dorm. The Wellesley Virgin and Child was a typical Gothic sculpture, about 3.5 feet tall. The piece had been purchased by the college in the 1950s, but it had no provenance beyond that date. The purpose of the assignment was to try to determine which part of France it came from, and also to suggest an approximate date for its creation. The Virgin held the child on her left hip, as women everywhere tend to do, standing in a slightly swaying gesture that allowed her robe to cascade down in graceful folds. She looked down with a gentle smile towards her child, but all she could connect with was an empty socket where his head should have been. His slender body was more that of a little boy than a baby. I had looked at as many similar statues as I could find in books or in the college collection of slides. This was, of course, long before the internet. And noted certain similarities in sculptures from parish churches in small towns in the Loire Valley. I found a detailed map of the region and narrowed down the area. Unfortunately, I have no copy of the paper, so I can't say exactly which region I chose. The similar sculptures were dated to about 1350, the High Gothic period, so I chose that date. Since my sculpture was readily accessible, Miss Frisch and I met in front of the Madonna one morning. I was nervous, but she had already read my paper. I brought along several books and the map to show her. I pointed out the many similarities that I saw in the details of the Wellesley sculpture and did a sort of triangulation on the map of 3 towns where comparable pieces were found. Miss Frisch seemed especially impressed that I had studied the map so closely and agreed with my date. She told me that this was a very good analysis and that the college would be preparing a new handbook on the collection, and she would like to include my findings. Could she keep the paper? I was flattered and happy when I saw that the A that she'd put in a circle at the top. Then she asked in her thick Austrian accent, and I can't do this very well, but I can try. But who are you? Why don't we know you? Obviously, I had made no impression. Here I was, a graduating senior, apparently diligent enough and with a good eye. I never heard anything further about a new collection handbook. After a few years, I had completed an MA in art history at Wayne State University in Detroit. In February of 1994, I was working as Director of Publications at the Detroit Institute of Arts, attending the meeting of the College Art Association, which was held in Boston that year. Wellesley had just opened a showy new museum building designed by distinguished Spanish architect Rafael Moneo. A free bus was offered to anyone wanting to attend an evening event at the renamed Davis Museum. It was cold and dark, and there was snow on the ground, so I wasn't inclined to wander around the campus. After a glass of wine, I made my way through the scrum of chattering art historians and quickly walked through the 3 floors of galleries, looking for my Virgin and Child. She was nowhere to be seen. Could she be somewhere in a niche or on a stairway that I'd missed? I found the curator of the collection, a pleasant, slim young woman wearing the requisite black dress and a colorful arty necklace. I explained about my paper for the medieval seminar with Miss Frisch. Oh, yes, she said, we've heard stories about her. Quite enough. She came to the opening of the museum last fall in a wheelchair. I described the sculpture, a typical French Gothic standing the Virgin and Child about 3 feet high, limestone. The curator thought for a moment. She looked a little puzzled. My field is contemporary, she said. Then she said, now, I think I know the piece you're talking about. I'm sorry, she's in storage in the basement. I asked if I might be able to see the sculpture some other time. Well, maybe if you really want to, but I'm afraid she's only a copy. What? Oh, no. You mean a fake? Well, yes, a fake. Good enough to fool Teresa Frisch, though, and to easily fool me. So much for the pinnacle of my academic In 2018, the online catalog of the Davis Museum collection lists the Virgin and Child as a 19th century copy of a 14th century original from Lorraine, but following Lorraine there's a question mark in parens. Not really sure, you see. From Lorraine, maybe. The material is cast stone, whatever that is. How embarrassing. Maybe she was a garden sculpture. Maybe there are several others just like it. At least I have the date correct, and that question mark makes a different location possible. Loire, Lorraine, who knows, who cares? About a damaged fake medieval sculpture in cast stone. Later in the 1990s, so then pause. Later in the 1990s, the college alumni magazine published a note on the death of Dean Teresa Frisch. I found it interesting to note that she was survived by her long-term companion. Let's just call her Mary Smith. Perhaps they were only friends, but I doubt it.